You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. E-discovery, short for electronic discovery, is the legal and technical process of identifying, preserving, collecting, reviewing, and producing electronically stored information, often abbreviated as ESI for litigation, regulatory inquiries, or internal investigations. In cloud environments, this process carries unique challenges because data is distributed across services, regions, and providers. What makes e-discovery vital is its defensibility. Organizations must prove that their methods preserved authenticity, avoided spoliation, and complied with legal obligations. Just as physical evidence must be bagged, tagged, and handled under strict chain of custody rules, digital evidence requires structured safeguards to ensure it remains credible in court. Cloud complicates matters with elastic workloads, ephemeral logs, and multi-tenant architectures, yet the same principles apply. Organizations must demonstrate that they can meet preservation and production duties without compromising privacy, security, or reliability. Done properly, cloud e-discovery balances legal defensibility with operational feasibility. Trigger events create the duty to preserve potentially relevant ESI when litigation or investigation is reasonably anticipated. Courts expect organizations to act promptly once they become aware of potential legal disputes. This obligation doesn't wait until a lawsuit is formally filed. It begins when a reasonable person would expect litigation. In practice, this may occur upon receipt of a demand letter, regulatory inquiry, or internal complaint suggesting legal exposure. In cloud settings, trigger events must cascade quickly through governance channels because data may otherwise be deleted by automated lifecycle policies. Imagine hearing that a storm is approaching. You would begin securing your property before the first raindrop. Similarly, once a trigger event occurs, preservation must begin immediately. Failing to act exposes organizations to sanctions for spoliation, which courts treat as serious misconduct because it undermines the fairness of proceedings. Legal holds are the formal directives that suspend routine deletion and mandate preservation of defined data. They notify custodians' employees, service accounts, and sometimes vendors that information under their control must not be altered or destroyed. In cloud environments, legal holds may involve suspending deletion policies for mailboxes, chat histories, or object storage. The key is clarity and traceability: who is subject to the hold, what data is covered, and how long it must remain frozen. Legal holds are like stop signs on automated roads. They halt the flow of deletion until further notice. Technology platforms often provide hold functionality, but organizations must pair these with clear communication to custodians. A defensible hold process ensures that evidence remains intact and that no one can claim ignorance of the duty. Courts scrutinize holds carefully, making them one of the most critical steps in e-discovery. Custodian identification is the process of determining whose data may be relevant to the matter at hand. Custodians can include individuals such as employees or executives, but also non-human actors like service accounts, shared mailboxes, and automated systems. In cloud contexts, custodians may extend to collaboration platforms, code repositories, or even IoT devices linked to the case. Identifying custodians is like assembling a witness list. Each custodian holds part of the story. Missing someone risks leaving gaps in evidence, while over-inclusion inflates costs and complexity. Organizations typically begin with interviews and review organizational charts, then expand outward as new connections are revealed. The defensibility of e-discovery depends in part on whether custodian selection was reasonable and well documented. Incomplete or careless identification can lead to sanctions, as courts may view it as willful blindness or negligence. Data mapping inventories the sources where potentially relevant information resides. This includes object stores, relational databases, collaboration suites, instant messaging tools, log archives, and cloud-native services. The purpose is to create a comprehensive catalog so that nothing material is overlooked. In cloud, Data mapping is dynamic, services evolve, integrations change, and new tools appear quickly. It is like drawing a blueprint of a complex building, ensuring every room and corridor is accounted for before a search begins. Without accurate mapping, preservation and collection efforts risk missing critical data. Data mapping also supports proportionality by clarifying what volume of data is implicated and where. In regulated industries, courts and regulators may expect organizations to produce these inventories as proof of due diligence. A defensible e-discovery program relies on current, well-maintained data maps. Preservation in place and copy-based preservation represent two primary strategies for securing data. Preservation in place retains data within live systems by suspending deletion policies or locking content, often through built-in platform tools. Copy-based preservation exports the data into controlled repositories, often with warm or immutability protections. Each approach has trade-offs. In-place preservation reduces duplication but may depend on provider integrity, while copy-based provides stronger custody but increases storage and management costs. It is like deciding whether to secure valuables in a home safe or move them into a bank vault. Both preserve integrity but with different balances of convenience and control. In cloud, hybrid models are common, leveraging in-place tools initially, then exporting high-value collections for long-term control. The defensibility of either method depends on documentation, consistency, and demonstrable reliability. Metadata integrity is essential for evidentiary credibility. Metadata includes timestamps, authorship, and access attributes that provide context for ESI. Altered metadata undermines authenticity, raising questions about whether evidence has been tampered with. In cloud, metadata integrity can be fragile because of system migrations, export tools, or conversion between formats. Preserving original metadata is like keeping a product label intact when moving items between containers. It proves origin and authenticity. Courts increasingly expect organizations to demonstrate that metadata has been preserved, especially for audit trails or chain of custody verification. Technical safeguards include exporting with forensic tools, validating hash values, and documenting processing steps. Without proper attention, even unintentionally altered metadata can weaken evidentiary weight. Metadata integrity ensures that digital artifacts tell the full story, not just isolated fragments, preserving both content and context. Chain of custody documents every handoff, transfer, and interaction with collected artifacts. It ensures that from the moment evidence is identified until it is presented in court, there is a clear record of who possessed it, how it was transferred, and under what safeguards. In cloud e-discovery, chain of custody may cover API exports, staging to repositories, or encrypted transfers across regions. Each step must be recorded with dates, signatures, and conditions. Think of it as a relay race baton. The credibility of the race depends on clean, documented handoffs. Breaks in custody can render evidence inadmissible, as opposing parties may claim alteration. Maintaining chain of custody requires both process discipline and technical controls, such as immutable logs. Done well, it gives courts and regulators confidence that evidence remains intact and trustworthy across its lifecycle. Hashing and deduplication are essential techniques for managing ESI volume while preserving authenticity. Hashing applies algorithms to generate unique digital fingerprints for each file, allowing integrity verification during transfers and processing. Deduplication uses hashes to identify and eliminate duplicate records, reducing review costs and focusing attention on unique content. For example, identical email attachments sent to multiple recipients are hashed once and reviewed once, with duplicates tracked. This is like scanning barcodes on packaged goods. Each unique product gets one code, and duplicates are counted rather than re-examined. Hashing also detects tampering, as any change alters the fingerprint. Deduplication ensures proportionality by reducing data volume without sacrificing completeness. Together, these techniques improve efficiency, reduce cost, and reinforce defensibility, demonstrating that evidence has been handled with rigor while avoiding unnecessary burden on organizations and courts. Search strategies transform vast datasets into manageable review pools. These strategies combine keywords, pattern recognition, and concept-based queries, often guided by legal and subject matter expertise. Documented criteria ensure searches are reproducible and defensible. In cloud, search may extend across email archives, chat messages, log data, or file stores, requiring consistent methods. For example, a search strategy may include specific product code names, date ranges, or regular expressions for financial records. Crafting these strategies is like using filters to pan for gold. The right parameters reduce noise while capturing relevant nuggets. Poorly designed searches risk missing critical documents or overproducing irrelevant material, increasing cost. Courts may require organizations to demonstrate the reasonableness of search methods. Transparent, iterative strategies show diligence and fairness, reinforcing credibility in both litigation and regulatory reviews. Technology-assisted review, or TAR, applies machine learning to prioritize documents for human review. By training algorithms with sample decisions, TAR systems rank documents by likely relevance, allowing reviewers to focus on high-value materials. This accelerates review while maintaining accuracy, particularly in large cloud datasets. TAR is like using a metal detector on a beach. It guides attention to likely hotspots, though final confirmation still requires human judgment. Courts increasingly accept TR as defensible, provided processes are transparent and validated. Sampling methods, recall and precision metrics, and quality controls strengthen confidence in results. In cloud e-discovery, TAR is essential because data volumes are often massive, making manual review impractical. By combining technology with oversight, TAR reduces burden and costs while preserving fairness, ensuring parties can navigate discovery without drowning in irrelevant information. Privilege review safeguards attorney-client communications and attorney work product from disclosure. These materials must be identified, segregated, and logged consistently. In cloud, privilege review extends across emails, chat messages, and collaborative platforms, requiring careful attention to context and participants. Logging privileged documents requires standardized justifications, ensuring courts can validate claims without seeing the underlying content. This process is like sealing confidential letters. They remain intact but are marked and tracked to prevent accidental exposure. Privilege review demands coordination between legal teams and technical platforms, as errors can waive protections. Automated tools assist but cannot replace legal judgment. By applying rigorous processes, organizations protect legal strategy while fulfilling discovery obligations. Effective privilege review demonstrates respect for both confidentiality and transparency, balancing competing duties in a defensible manner. Production formats determine how ESI is delivered to opposing parties or regulators. Common formats include native files which preserve original metadata, or image-based productions like TIFF or PDF with load files. Bates, numbering assigning unique identifiers to each document ensures consistent referencing. Choices about format influence usability and defensibility. For example, native files provide authenticity but may reveal more metadata than intended, while image formats limit interactivity but standardize presentation. Production is like packaging goods for shipment. Labels, formats, and protections must meet recipient expectations while preserving integrity. Courts may issue specific production orders, and agreements between parties often define acceptable formats. Poor production planning can lead to disputes, delays, or sanctions. Defensible production ensures evidence is delivered clearly, consistently, and with preserved authenticity, maintaining fairness and credibility throughout the discovery process. Proportionality principles guide discovery scope by balancing relevance against cost and burden. Courts recognize that while parties must preserve and produce relevant evidence, demands must not impose undue hardship. For example, requesting decades of archived logs for minor disputes may be deemed disproportionate. In cloud, proportionality often involves negotiating which services or time periods are truly necessary, given costs of storage, transfer, and review. The principle is like scaling medical treatment to severity. Minor injuries don't require invasive procedures. Proportionality prevents discovery from becoming a weapon of attrition, ensuring fairness and efficiency. Organizations must document proportionality decisions, showing that scope was narrowed responsibly. Courts look favorably on parties who demonstrate reasoned, good faith approaches, reinforcing that e-discovery is not limitless fishing, but structured fact-finding aligned to case needs. Protective orders, redaction, and access controls ensure sensitive or personal data is shielded during discovery. Protective orders may restrict who can see certain data, limit use to the litigation, or require secure storage. Redaction removes sensitive details, such as personal identifiers, before production. Access controls enforce least privilege, ensuring only authorized reviewers handle particular datasets. In cloud, these safeguards are vital because ESI often includes personal data covered by privacy laws. Discovery must balance transparency with confidentiality, much like courtroom rules that allow evidence but protect juror privacy. Failing to implement protections risks regulatory violations or inadvertent exposure of sensitive information. Properly applied, these measures demonstrate diligence, preserving fairness while respecting privacy. They ensure that discovery obligations are met without sacrificing compliance or trust. Time normalization is often overlooked but critical in reconstructing accurate event timelines. Cloud systems span regions and time zones, each with different settings and daylight-saving rules. When logs are collected, discrepancies can create misleading narratives. Normalizing time ensures that events align consistently, allowing investigators and courts to reconstruct sequences accurately. For example, an email timestamped in UTC must be reconciled with chat logs in local time zones. Without normalization, evidence may appear contradictory, undermining credibility. It is like synchronizing watches before a coordinated operation. Everyone must work from the same clock. Cloud e-discovery requires technical processes to harmonize time across systems, often converting to a common standard, such as UTC. Time normalization reinforces authenticity, ensuring evidence is interpreted correctly and defensibly across multiple sources and jurisdictions. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Cloud Native Collection relies on provider application programming interfaces, or APIs, and built-in export functions to retrieve evidence. Unlike traditional on-premises discovery, cloud systems rarely allow direct disk imaging or unrestricted access to back-end infrastructure. Instead, defensibility depends on using provider-supported methods that ensure completeness and integrity. For example, exporting email archives through Microsoft 365 Compliance Center or Google Vault provides verified coverage with metadata intact. These processes are like using official record requests rather than personal copies. The legitimacy comes from authorized, standardized channels. However, organizations must validate that exports are comprehensive and properly scoped, since errors or omissions can weaken credibility. Cloud Native Collection highlights the importance of documentation. Auditors, regulators, and courts expect organizations to show not only what was collected, but also how tools guaranteed reliability. Trust in the process stems from adherence to supported mechanisms, not improvised workarounds. Multi-tenant constraints shape how cloud providers handle discovery requests. In shared infrastructure, direct access to physical systems is impractical and often prohibited for security reasons. Instead, customers must rely on artifacts available through APIs, logs, or exported datasets, often supplemented with provider attestations. These constraints protect other tenants from exposure but limit visibility for discovery teams. It is like living in an apartment building. Inspectors cannot enter every unit, so landlords provide verified reports of shared systems. Courts increasingly recognize these realities, accepting provider attestations as valid substitutes for direct inspection. Customers must therefore evaluate contracts carefully to ensure providers commit to timely, defensible exports when required. Multi-tenant limitations remind organizations that cloud discovery is a balance between customer needs and provider responsibilities, with transparency and trust serving as the bridge between both sides. Warm repositories and immutability flags protect collected evidence from alteration. WORM stands for Write Once, Read Many, meaning data is locked upon entry and can only be read thereafter. Immutability ensures that even administrators cannot tamper with preserved datasets. In e-discovery, these safeguards are critical for maintaining evidentiary weight, as they prevent spoliation claims. Cloud providers often offer worm storage options or immutability settings for logs and archives, enabling organizations to prove data remained intact. Think of worm as sealing evidence in tamper-proof envelopes, ensuring authenticity regardless of who handles it later. Without such protections, adversaries could challenge whether evidence was altered after collection. By leveraging immutability, organizations demonstrate diligence in maintaining the integrity of their collections, reinforcing defensibility. Courts and regulators view immutability features favorably, recognizing them as modern equivalents of traditional physical evidence seals. Egress planning addresses the practical challenges of exporting large datasets from cloud environments. Transfers may involve terabytes or even petabytes of data, making bandwidth, time, and cost significant concerns. Providers may impose throttling or charge egress fees, so organizations must estimate these impacts in advance. Planning ensures that exports are staged effectively, avoiding disruption to ongoing operations. It is like planning a large shipment. Trucks, fuel, and routes must be coordinated to avoid bottlenecks or overruns. In discovery, delays or incomplete exports can jeopardize legal obligations. Organizations often balance between exporting entire datasets or narrowing scope through targeted searches. Proper egress planning demonstrates foresight and proportionality, ensuring obligations are met without unnecessary burden. Courts respect documented planning efforts, seeing them as evidence of reasonableness in balancing discovery scope against cost and operational realities. Collaboration content introduces unique challenges for e-discovery. Modern cloud platforms like Slack, Teams, or Google Workspace include chats, comments, reactions, and file versions that may all be relevant. Capturing this content requires tool-specific procedures, as exports must preserve context and metadata. For instance, preserving a chat without timestamps or participants renders it nearly useless in court. Collaboration content is like conversational evidence. It must be recorded verbatim, not summarized, to remain credible. Additionally, platforms may store data in fragmented ways, complicating retrieval. Organizations must design playbooks for capturing collaboration data consistently, documenting limitations, and ensuring defensibility. Ignoring collaboration tools risks overlooking significant communications that shape case narratives. By building procedures tailored to each platform, organizations ensure completeness and preserve the modern paper trail that now lives in cloud-based conversations. Log and telemetry collection preserves evidence from both control plane and data plane activities. Control plane logs capture administrative actions like provisioning or policy changes, while data plane logs track interactions with workloads and data. Together, they form the backbone of accountability, showing who did what and when. Synchronizing logs across services and ensuring consistent time sources such as UTC prevents confusion in reconstruction. Log collection is like securing surveillance footage. Without it, narratives become speculative. In cloud, ephemeral logs may disappear quickly unless retention settings are configured properly, making proactive capture essential. Organizations must also account for the privacy implications of collecting telemetry, ensuring compliance with laws like GDPR. Properly collected and normalized logs provide rich evidence for investigations, audits, and litigation, reinforcing both technical integrity and legal defensibility. Encryption and decryption workflows, protect ESI during transit and storage, while maintaining accessibility for review. Exports must be encrypted to prevent interception, yet discovery teams need decryption keys to process content. This requires careful key management and documentation to ensure both confidentiality and usability. For instance, files might be encrypted with AES 256 for transfer, then decrypted within secure review platforms. This is like transporting valuables in a locked container, then unlocking them only in a secure vault. Poorly managed encryption can hinder review or, worse, lose access entirely. Strong workflows balance security with practicality, ensuring evidence remains confidential without obstructing legal duties. Courts expect organizations to safeguard sensitive data, especially personal information, during discovery. Documented encryption practices reassure stakeholders that confidentiality was maintained, while controlled decryption ensures that evidence remains functional for analysis and production. Subprocessor coordination extends discovery obligations to third-party services integrated into cloud ecosystems. A cloud provider may rely on other vendors for storage, analytics, or support functions. To ensure completeness, organizations must confirm whether subprocessors can provide exports, maintain retention settings, and honor legal holds. Coordination often involves reviewing contracts, obtaining attestations, and testing export capabilities in advance. It is like ensuring subcontractors at a construction site follow safety rules. Oversight cannot stop at the main provider. Failure to account for subprocessors risks incomplete collections or gaps in evidence defensibility. Structured coordination ensures obligations cascade through the service chain, preventing surprises during litigation. Mature discovery programs treat subprocessors as part of the evidence environment, extending governance, communication, and accountability outward to all participants in the cloud ecosystem. Cross-border transfers of ESI raise the same concerns as operational data transfers but with added urgency. When producing evidence internationally, organizations must consider mechanisms like SCCs, adequacy decisions, or localization mandates. Conflicts of law may also arise, where one jurisdiction demands production while another prohibits transfer. Navigating these conflicts requires legal counsel, careful documentation, and sometimes regulator engagement. Producing ESI across borders is like navigating competing traffic laws in different countries. What is legal in one may be illegal in another. Courts expect organizations to balance obligations reasonably, documenting choices and safeguards. Failing to address cross-border issues risks either contempt for non-production or violations of privacy laws. Proper planning ensures that discovery obligations are met without undermining global compliance, reinforcing defensibility in complex legal environments. Data Subject Access Requests, or DSARs, sometimes intersect with discovery obligations. While DSARs focus on individual rights under privacy laws, discovery demands often require retention and production for litigation. Organizations must balance these overlapping duties without losing evidence. For instance, if an individual requests deletion of their data while it is subject to a legal hold, retention takes precedence until the matter concludes. This balance is like freezing a library book under investigation. It cannot be discarded until inquiries are complete. Transparent documentation ensures regulators understand why requests were delayed. Managing DSARs alongside discovery requires close collaboration between legal, privacy, and technical teams. By reconciling these obligations, organizations avoid non-compliance in either domain, proving that privacy and discovery can coexist under disciplined governance. Review platform governance ensures that discovery platforms themselves remain secure and auditable. These platforms must enforce least privilege, limiting who can access sensitive evidence. Audit logging tracks every action, from searches to downloads, creating defensibility if disputes arise. Segregation is also critical. Opposing parties should never share the same environment without strict partitions. This governance is like securing a courthouse archive. Access is logged, roles are defined, and confidentiality is preserved. In cloud, review platforms must handle diverse data types securely, from emails to collaboration content. Governance reassures stakeholders that sensitive evidence will not leak during review. By embedding strong access controls and logs, organizations demonstrate maturity, ensuring that the tools supporting discovery do not themselves become sources of risk or liability. Quality control sampling validates that discovery processes meet obligations. Samples verify whether search strategies captured relevant documents, whether redactions removed sensitive data accurately, and whether productions are complete. For example, auditors may test a random subset of exported data to ensure all metadata remains intact. Quality control is like proofreading before publishing. Even small errors can undermine credibility. In cloud, automation supports sampling at scale, but human oversight remains essential. Courts and regulators expect evidence of quality controls as they demonstrate diligence rather than blind reliance on tools. Without QC, errors may surface only after production, risking sanctions or reputational harm. With structured sampling, organizations can confidently assert that their discovery methods are defensible, accurate, and fair, meeting both technical and legal standards. Post-matter disposition ensures evidence does not linger indefinitely once legal obligations end. After litigation or investigation, holds are released, retention schedules resume, and approved destruction occurs. This prevents stale data from accumulating, reducing both cost and risk. For example, collected datasets may be securely deleted, with destruction certificates recorded. Post-matter disposition is like returning borrowed equipment. Keeping it longer than needed creates clutter and liability. Organizations must document releases and destruction approvals to prove compliance and accountability. Failure to resume normal life cycles can undermine privacy principles and inflate storage costs. By practicing disciplined disposition, organizations close the discovery loop responsibly, showing that evidence handling is not just about collection, but also about ethical, timely release when no longer required. Process documentation and playbooks transform discovery into a repeatable, auditable discipline. Documentation records every step: triggers, holds, collections, searches, reviews, and productions. Playbooks provide standardized procedures, ensuring consistency across matters and staff. These tools are like recipes in a kitchen. They ensure outcomes are consistent regardless of who cooks. In cloud, where platforms differ and evolve, documentation proves that processes were reasonable and reproducible. Courts value playbooks because they demonstrate preparedness, reducing suspicion of ad hoc or biased practices. Documentation also supports training, helping new staff quickly adopt established methods. By institutionalizing knowledge, organizations reduce dependence on individuals and increase defensibility. Discovery becomes not only a reactive activity, but a structured program, proving maturity in governance and legal readiness. From an exam perspective, candidates must grasp preservation duties, cloud collection methods, and evidentiary integrity. Questions may test understanding of legal holds, metadata preservation, or cross-border conflicts, as well as technical safeguards like worm storage or transparency logs. Exam relevance emphasizes reasoning, why remote access may trigger transfer obligations, or how to balance proportionality against cost. Candidates must connect legal requirements with technical practice, demonstrating how to preserve, collect, and produce ESI defensibly in cloud contexts. Mastery involves more than memorization. It requires showing how principles like chain of custody or privilege review apply in shared responsibility environments. This focus mirrors real-world demands, where professionals must ensure discovery stands up not only in audits, but also in courts. In conclusion, disciplined holds, cloud-aware collection, and governed production deliver defensible e-discovery outcomes. Preservation begins with triggers and legal holds, ensuring data remains intact. Collection relies on provider-supported exports, WRM storage, and sub-processors coordinated transparently. Review requires privilege safeguards, proportionality, and quality controls. Production formats, time normalization, and governance ensure evidence is both authentic and usable. Post-matter disposition closes the lifecycle responsibly, resuming normal operations without lingering risks. Together, these practices prove that cloud discovery can meet traditional legal standards while adapting to modern architectures. The essence of defensible e-discovery is integrity, showing that authenticity, completeness, and fairness were preserved at every step. In cloud environments, this requires combining legal discipline with technical precision, ensuring that evidence remains credible across borders, platforms, and contexts. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.